All right, let's talk about virtual reality. And I mean, really talk about it. We're going to go way beyond the gaming hype to see how this incredible technology is already changing our world in some pretty fundamental ways. That sounds like something straight out of a movie, right? But here's the thing, it's not science fiction anymore. This is the powerful promise of VR, the ability to create and step inside any world we can possibly think of. And it's happening fast. In this explainer, we're going to see how this tech is jumping from our living rooms straight into the operating room, into the cockpit of a fighter jet, and even onto the modern battlefield. The applications are serious, and frankly, the impact is huge. Okay, so before we get into all the wild stuff, we need to get a couple of key terms straight, because you hear them thrown around all the time, but they are very, very different. Virtual and augmented reality. So what's the difference? It's actually pretty simple when you break it down. With virtual reality, you put on a headset and your entire world is replaced. You are completely inside a new digital environment. But with augmented reality, digital stuff gets layered on top of your real world. The virtual world comes into your world. And make no mistake, this isn't just for a few techie industries. We're talking about a massive shift happening across the board in just about every high-stakes field you can think of. All right, so let's really dig in. Let's look at where this technology isn't just cool, but where the stakes are literally life and death. I'm talking about medicine and defense. This is where VR's power is just undeniable. Think about it. For hundreds of years, how did you train for a super complex job? Textbooks, right? And maybe, if you were lucky, you got some limited, expensive, and frankly risky hands-on practice. A surgeon might only practice a new procedure once or twice before the real thing. VR just throws that whole model out the window. And the results? Well, they speak for themselves. Get this, surgical students who trained using VR made a whopping 40% fewer mistakes compared to the ones trained the old-fashioned way. That's a huge deal for patient safety. So not only is it safer, it's just better, way better. One study saw students' overall performance shoot up by 250%. Why? Because they can practice a complex surgery over and over and over in a totally risk-free world until it's second nature. And now for the part that might surprise you. The kicker is that this super advanced, more effective training is actually cheaper. One study found that it's 83% more cost-effective than using those super expensive high-tech medical mannequins. So what does this actually look like in the real world? Well, it's surgeons rehearsing a delicate brain operation. It's pilots learning to fly multi-million-dollar jets without burning a single drop of fuel. And it's soldiers running through complex combat scenarios that would be way too dangerous or just plain impossible to set up in real life. And it's not just about seeing and hearing the battlefield. The US Army is using something called haptics. That's technology that lets you feel things to actually induce the stress of combat. It helps prepare a soldier's mind and body for the real deal by making them feel the recoil of their weapon, the rumble of a tank, the whole nine yards. So, the big question is, how does this magic trick actually work? Let's peel back the curtain and take a quick look at the tech that makes it all possible. You can think of it like a stack, really, 4 layers that build on top of each other. You've got the hardware at the bottom, that's your headset, your portal. Then you have the visuals and audio that create the immersion. On top of that is the software, the game engine that actually builds the world. And finally, the user experience, which is all about making it feel natural to be there. So if you ever look at the specs for a VR headset, these are the big ones to pay attention to. Higher resolution gets rid of that distracting screen door look. A wide field of view makes you feel like you're actually there, not just looking through binoculars. A high refresh rate makes everything silky smooth, which is a huge deal for comfort. And haptics, well, that's what lets you reach out and actually feel the virtual world. Okay, so it all sounds amazing, right? But let's be real. The technology isn't perfect. Not yet, anyway. There are some pretty big challenges that everyone from users to developers are still trying to solve. And this is probably the number one question I get. Does it make you feel sick? It's a totally fair question. And for a lot of people, the answer, unfortunately, is still yes. And yeah, the data backs this up. A pretty big chunk of people, we're talking somewhere between 40 and 70%, can get what's called cybersickness. It feels a lot like motion sickness, and it's probably the single biggest hurdle keeping VR from going mainstream.
And the reason why is actually super fascinating. It all comes down to a kind of glitch in your brain. It's called sensory conflict theory. Your eyes are telling your brain, hey, we're moving, we're on a roller coaster. But your inner ear, which controls your balance, is saying, nope, we're sitting perfectly still. That disconnect is what makes your brain freak out and can make you feel really nauseous.
But feeling queasy isn't the only concern. There's another, maybe even bigger issue brewing in these new virtual worlds, and it's all about your personal data. I mean, think about the amount of data a VR headset can collect. It's not just what you're looking at, it's how you move, your unconscious reactions, your eye movements, even biometric data. It's a potential privacy minefield, and it raises some really tough questions about who owns all that information, especially after things like Meta forcing users to have a Facebook account. But even with these hurdles, the momentum is undeniable. This technology is charging ahead towards a really ambitious vision for what our digital future could look like. Okay, the metaverse. You've heard the buzzword a million times, but what does it actually mean? Well, don't think of it as one single app or game. Think of it as the next version of the internet itself, a persistent, shared 3D world that you can actually step inside of to work, play, and connect with people. And don't think this is some sci-fi dream decades away. The foundations are being laid right now, especially in the business world for training and collaboration. In fact, the big analyst firm Gartner predicts that in just a couple of years, a full 25% of us will be spending at least 1 hour every day in the metaverse. So look, the takeaway is this. Virtual reality isn't coming soon. It's here. It's already proving itself in the most critical fields on the planet, and it is evolving at a breakneck speed. The only real question left is, how are we going to use it to shape our future?